Hey guys, how we doing? So we're back on another Swag Kage versus video. The Minato versus Pain video was good, very one-sided. I said from the get-go Minato was going to beast that match. This one, however, it's Minato versus Nagato. Very similar names, I assure you, very different people. I feel like this is going to be quite an interesting one, because especially if he does Edo Tensei versions of both of them where they've got like unlimited amount of chakra and the amount of techniques they can do, because Nagato's going to have all 6 paths abilities for himself. But then Minato's going to have bloody Sage mode and QB mode and all that other stuff, so I honestly don't know which way to go on this, but because I feel like I have to give a prediction, I feel like Minato is going to win this one again. Because he's my fave. He's my boy. Let's do this. Minato versus Nagato.
How's it going, everyone? Swag Kage here, and welcome to today's video, where, due to the overwhelming support in the comments of my last video, we're going to be talking about Minato versus Nagato. For those of you upset about how one-sided Minato versus Pain may have seemed, we'll be happy to hear that this is going to be a much more even matchup than the last one was. I'm going to be focusing on the Edo Tensei versions of both.
Awesome, yes,
because of that, this fight's going to be pretty unique, since neither fighter can kill the other. They're both going to have to resort to sealing or some other unconventional methods of dealing with their opponent. Now, this isn't that much of a problem for Nagato, since the human path just lets him rip the soul out of anyone he makes contact with. If he does this to Minato, the fight ends right there. It's basically the same as killing him. Minato can sort of do the same thing by summoning the Shinigami, but it's not nearly as easy for him, and it also comes with a much higher cost. Even if he does manage to pull it off, the fight would end in a tie at best. It would
can you imagine that? I'll take your soul.
Way using the human path would for Nagato. Now, this on its own is going to be a pretty big problem for Minato, and it's one of many factors that'll make this fight much harder for him than the last one was. It doesn't put him at an overwhelming disadvantage, but the Edo Tensei dynamic is a pretty big deal here just because of Nagato's ability to basically completely ignore the pseudo-immortality it provides to people. To that, some of you may be asking how taking Edo Tensei out of the equation and focusing on the alive versions of both of these characters affects the fight. I'll talk more about why I think this later, but my answer to that is it puts Minato at an even greater disadvantage, because without KCM, I can't see him doing a lot against a full-power Prime Nagato. I already covered most of what Minato can do and many of the Rinnegan's powers in my last video, but there are a lot of new factors worth taking into consideration here, since we're no longer talking about living Minato versus the 6 paths of pain. For starters, Nagato is much more of a threat than the paths, both individually and as a unit. The only thing he loses in the transition from controlling 6 bodies to fighting using his own is the massive field of vision accessible to the 6 paths. What he gets in exchange more than makes up for it, though. Nagato is both much faster and much stronger than any of the paths, and especially now that he's reanimated, his durability is so much greater than that of the paths that it really isn't even comparable. Nagato also doesn't have to worry about losing any of the Rinnegan's powers because of getting hit with a single Rasengan the same way the 6 paths do. Not only are their bodies much more fragile than Nagato's, but the powers of the Rinnegan are also linked to each of them. If one of them goes down, Pain loses a core piece of his arsenal until he gets the opportunity to revive the fallen
whereas Nagato's got them all.
And Nagato doesn't have this weakness. No matter how much damage he takes, he'll still be able to use any of the jutsu accessible through the Rinnegan, and that makes an enormous difference here. Now, while this is definitely a big deal, I don't want to gloss over the difference in speed and strength that I mentioned earlier. This is arguably even more important than what I was just talking about. The difference in physical prowess between Pain and Nagato isn't incredibly apparent because of how short Nagato's fight against Naruto B and Itachi is, but it's still undeniably present. Naruto says himself that he's much stronger in this fight than he was against Pain, and while statements aren't exactly the most reliable indication of strength, I doubt anyone would dispute that War Arc QB Chakra mode Naruto is stronger than Pain Arc Sage mode Naruto. Now, Pain was weakened during his fight with Sage Naruto, but Jiraiya also managed to single-handedly defeat 3 of the 6 paths, albeit arguably 3 of the weakest, but still 3 nonetheless, and may have been able to defeat more if Pain's statement at the end of the fight is any indication. I've said before that I don't think Jiraiya could have defeated all of the paths, but I do think he may have beaten more than 3 had he not been caught off guard at the tail end of the fight. Hopefully we're all in agreement when I say that War Arc Naruto is undeniably much stronger than both Jiraiya and Pain Arc Naruto, and Nagato thrashed him with ease. As a matter of fact, Nagato nearly killed both Naruto and Bee in just a couple of pages. The only reason he wasn't able to is because Itachi stopped him by launching a point-blank melee assault with his Susanoo. I'm confident that KCM Naruto could handle the Paths of Pain by himself. A team of both he and Bee, who are able to take on 6 Jinchuriki at once, would be complete overkill. Perhaps Nagato's performance against them can be attributed to how surprised they may have been by how bizarre his abilities were, or in Naruto's case, the fact that he could use all of the Rinnegan's powers at once, but I think the two of them could easily handle the Paths of Pain with even less intel than they had going into the fight with Nagato. Regardless of what you may think, the fact still remains that Nagato was able to intercept KCM Naruto mid-approach and nearly rip out his soul. Even if you consider this a fluke, Nagato also protected himself from one of Naruto's Rasengan immediately after grabbing a hold of him, and he reacted to an assault from Bee perfectly just moments later. It can be argued that his raw speed is just as great as his reaction time, as he was able to throw Bee off of him, turn around, and restrain Naruto all before either Naruto or Itachi could reach him. There's something to be said about his strength too, considering he easily launched Bee off of him while being carried through a forest by a version 2 cloak amped lariat, and stopped himself from being carried backwards any further before immobilizing Naruto through the series of events I described earlier. Now, to be fair, this was all after absorbing Bee's chakra. Before that, Nagato was crippled and couldn't even walk properly, but I don't think it's nearly as interesting to discuss a scenario where a crippled Nagato fights Minato at full power. Even then, I think Nagato may be able to regain his mobility in a fight against Minato, or anyone for that matter, by absorbing chakra the same way he did against Bee. Since it's likely that Nagato will summon one of the Animal Path's animals to compensate for his lack of mobility, Minato will be forced to approach him, and if a lariat isn't strong enough to stop Nagato from absorbing chakra, I doubt anything Minato can put out would be able to do so either. Speaking of Minato, not much is different about him now that he's reanimated, aside from the fact that he can enter QB chakra mode. This pretty comfortably counters the jump in speed and power that I described with Nagato, but it only offers a few advantages aside from that. The biggest one, of course, is that he can now manifest a full avatar of the Nine Tails, which will be really useful when dealing with large-scale attacks like Chibaku Tensei and the summons of the Animal Path. This will probably be the hardest thing in Minato's arsenal for Nagato to deal with, and while summoning the Geto Mazo would certainly be a solid counter to it, Nagato can't do that while in a reanimated state. It's explicitly stated after Madara's revival that to summon the statue, a person must be in possession of authentic Rinnegan, unlike those created when someone is revived with Edo Tensei. Minato's ability to summon a Kurama avatar may also mean that Chibaku Tensei will be completely worthless in this fight, since Naruto was able to break free of the same jutsu using a less powerful transformation. While controlling the Kurama avatar, Minato should be able to create an enormous Rasengan like the one shown here, but because he was only able to do this specifically with Naruto's assistance, the Rasengan would likely be much smaller and much less powerful. Still, he should hypothetically be able to create one of similar scale, even if it isn't nearly as impressive. He should also be able to fire tailed beast bombs, and while both of these attacks are very powerful, this brings me to something that's extremely problematic for Minato. Nagato can absorb jutsu, and the jutsu absorption of the Pratapath has never been shown to have a limit. Now, I know I may be succumbing to the no-limits fallacy here, but because neither Nagato, the Pratapath, Madara, or anyone with the Rinnegan has ever been shown failing to absorb a jutsu, it's very hard to determine whether or not Nagato would be able to absorb a Bijudama, or anything of similar scale and destructive power. Absorbing a large Rasengan should be pretty easy for Nagato, since the Pratapath was shown doing this during Pain's fight against Jiraiya. That said, I don't know about a Bijudama, but according to the third databook, the Pratapath can absorb all ninjutsu. While I don't like referring to the databooks, because they say some pretty wild stuff, like Heavy Sasuke being stronger than every member of the Akatsuki, since there's no other reference material here, I'm going to consider this worth using, and speak under the impression that yes, Nagato can absorb a tailed beast bomb. In that case, since he appeared to grow stronger after absorbing the Hachi Beast chakra from Bee, if Minato does fire a tailed beast bomb at him, which he likely will if he doesn't know anything about Nagato's ability to absorb ninjutsu, this fight might end up being really rough for him. This is also a problem for Minato in close quarters combat. If Nagato gets a hold of him, he's going to absorb a sizable chunk of the Nine Tails chakra, and he will continue doing this every time he gets the opportunity. The only thing I can see Nagato alternatively opting for is attempting to rip Minato's soul out, which likely won't be incredibly effective at first, since it is possible Minato would be able to teleport out of Nagato's grasp while his soul is in the process of being extracted. But regardless, a successful attempt to do either of these is bad news for Minato. If his soul gets taken, then he flat out loses the fight, and if Nagato absorbs any of the the Ninetales chakra, then he becomes a great deal stronger. Now that we're on the subject of how the two would interact in a fight, a lot of the stuff that gave Minato an advantage in his fight against Pain doesn't help him out nearly as much here. For instance, his ability to use shadow clones won't be as problematic for Nagato as it would be for Pain, since he's far more durable than any of the paths were. If anything, I see shadow clones as free food for Nagato, since he could summon the extra limbs of the Asura path to cover any of the clones' approach angles, grab a hold of them, then use the Preta path to absorb their chakra. And even though his field of vision isn't as insane as the Six Paths is, he can still protect himself from being blindsided by summoning any of the Animal Path's animals, or by summoning the King of Hell. Also, unlike the Six Paths of Pain, Nagato can't be taken out with a simple Flying Thunder God Rasengan combo, and because of this, Minato can't easily strip him of any abilities he finds problematic like he can with Pain. While Minato is clearly an expert user of Fuin Jutsu, meaning that sealing Nagato won't be too hard for him, getting himself into a position where he's actually able to do this is a completely different story. Now, some of you are probably going to be pretty upset about this, but in all honesty, even when taking KCM into account, I think Minato would get overwhelmed the same way that Naruto and Bee did, especially if he goes into the fight without any knowledge. Nagato's abilities are just way too weird and way too strong for him to be even halfway prepared to deal with them. But because Minato doesn't have anything in his arsenal that Nagato doesn't have a clear answer to, I can't say that Minato wins this in good faith. He's definitely faster and arguably stronger than Nagato, but Nagato's insane versatility and his ability to grow stronger as the fight progresses, combined with his many ways to practically nullify all of Minato's attack options, I think it's just too much for Minato to handle. I think that Nagato takes this in most situations. Anyway, as always, make sure to let me know
the way you described all those techniques that I can't really
leave any requests you have for future video topics down there as well. Make sure you have a great rest of the day, and until my next video, I'll talk to you later. Swagkage out. Bye.
Man. Well, can't really argue with that one. Nagato had quite a lot of stuff going on. A lot of weird abilities. A lot of stuff he could do to counter things. And well, yeah. So they have it. Oh, damn it. Now you cry, but it would be cool though. It would be, how awesome would it be if like they did like actually animate these kind of fights, did like a whole what if series, like animated and did it all like proper like Naruto style. That'd be incredible. I'd watch that kind of stuff. It'd be amazing. But anyway, that was that. Thank you guys very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you're watching and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, yes, all of you guys, next time.